Being here tonight, the class of 2019, we're having a little bit of technical difficulty, and we're hopefully going to try to figure that out. But I think you'll be fine if we can't get the presentation on the PowerPoint up, because you actually have it in your hands now. So if we need to kind of go old school with it, we'll be able to take you through the document as well. Your children, your juniors were in the assembly this morning, and the guidance staff brought them through pieces of the presentation you're going to see tonight. And one of the messages that I gave to them is that really today really begins their journey to their graduation day. And one of the charges that I said to them is that I really want to make sure that regardless of whatever pathway they're going to be going in, that we make sure that they leave with a plan. And that this college planning night, whether or not it's a 4-year experience, a 2-year experience, or really there could be students sitting in this room or families of students in this room that really they don't know what they want to do yet. And that's okay. Because I told every junior that it's important that you hear this presentation so that if you do have that 11th hour, you know what, I want to apply to Bridgewater, or I want to apply to go to Massasoit to do enrollment admission, that you at least have some underpinning to understand what that is. So I welcome you tonight. It is an incredible time of your child's journey in high school as they begin the second semester of junior year, and before you know it, you'll be in the second semester of their senior year. And I cannot wait to guide this class to their graduation day. So welcome. I'm going to turn over to Mr. Goldman, who's the MC for the evening and who has some wealth of information from his days in his work in university. And I think you're in for a really informative evening, and a thank you so much to our special guests, and I know Steve will introduce all of them. So enjoy your evening.
Good evening, welcome, and we apologize for the technical difficulties. So we're gonna wing it, and we're gonna do the best we can. Unfortunately, we were going to show you how to do a college search on our Navion software program. All of your juniors actually got to see the demonstration today, so they can probably teach you how to do that. If this does come up on the screen for us, we will do that. But we're gonna start, as Mr. Brannigan said, going old school, and we're gonna start with the workbook. So when you came in, there were several pieces of material up there: the workbook, tonight's agenda, which is on the orange paper, the college admission selector, which highlights where a lot of the New England schools fall as far as competitiveness, an SAT, ACT comparison sheet in pink. And then the last piece, which is the most important for us is here at the school, is the evaluation form. So if you could, at the end of the presentation, fill out the program evaluation form, we would really appreciate it. We do listen to the feedback, and we do make changes every year to the program based on what the parents and the students are telling us. If we're not communicating the way we need to, we're wasting everybody's time. So it is important to hear back from you so we can continue to make the program stronger every year. So if you look at the agenda, tonight we're going to talk about, the panel discussion is going to talk about matching yourself to a school, the interview and the visit to colleges, the application, the essay, and we're going to open it up to questions from the panel of speakers, which we'll introduce in a little bit. And I'll be available after also for any guidance related questions. And certainly your juniors guidance counselors are accessible through telephone or email. We'll be happy to answer questions specifically to your situation. So if you open up the workbook to the inside cover, you're going to see the junior timeline. Now this isn't cast in stone. What we've done in the past is we used to have a workshop in March, and we loaded all this information, just unloaded all this information on the juniors, and it was very overwhelming. This is not a really hard process, it's just a very long and time-consuming process. And you want to make sure that you are taking your time and you're going through the steps and you're doing things in a way that that's going to be effective and thorough, because it could be a very expensive mistake if you rush and do sloppy work when you start your senior year. So we're not starting early because we're starting early because it's necessary to start early, to pace yourself. You don't want to come into your senior year and try to do all this. It's going to be incredibly overwhelming. So you see, here we are in February, and thank you. You're all here for the College Planning Night. Where to begin? This is part one of a 3-part series. Part 2 is going to be coming up in April. And that is going to be new material of what you should be doing between that point and when you come back for your senior year. And then we'll have Part 3 your senior year sometime in late September, which is called the nuts and bolts of applying to college. Our hope and our goal is that by the time you get back senior year, it's just the last minute details. The essay is done, the applications are pretty much filled out. You find that last minute school that you want to apply to. You've already visited the schools. You've already taken at least one SAT. We want to get all this stuff out of the way before you come back senior year, so you can really just focus on keeping your grades up, because those first quarter and those mid-year grades go off to the colleges and they recalculate everything. So it's really important that you have a strong senior schedule. They're not looking for you winding down your high school years, they're looking for you gearing up for college. So you want to make sure that you are at least as strong as you've been the last 3 years, or appropriately challenging yourself. Don't start taking advanced level courses if that's not your thing. We don't want you to start getting D's and F's in classes. We want you to challenge yourself, but appropriately challenge yourself. So let's look at the timeline a little bit and just highlight a few things. The GPAs, all your GPAs have been recalculated since report cards came out last week, and they are now on Naviance, on your profile page. So you can go into Naviance and you can find your GPA and see where you stand at this point. Your PSAT scores have been loaded into Naviance also, so when you start doing college searching, those two factors, which are important pieces in the search, will help you decide on what would be appropriate schools to apply to. The other thing that was up on the tables was the parents' temporary passwords for Naviance. Now, it seems like there were a lot of issues. How many people did not have a card with their student's name on it up there? Okay, we apologize for that. They uploaded everything from Aspen into Naviance from what we were told. But what we will do is just contact your child's guidance counselor, just shoot them an email, and they will email you back with the temporary password. And we'll show you how to log on in a few minutes when we get to that section of the workbook. Now is the time to start looking at different SAT prep programs. Now, the SAT prep programs are very expensive. The Kaplan program, you're probably looking at about $900. Personally, I don't think you need to spend that kind of money. Most people can't afford that. There's a lot of other programs out there. Bridgewater State has an SAT prep program that's a lot less expensive. There's information in the guidance office on the dates of that program. There's a lot of places in the area that do private tutoring. That's probably the most expensive. The most effective would be for your son or daughter to make sure they linked their PSAT scores. When they got their PSAT scores back, we asked them to open up a College Board account. And they're going to need to do that to register for the SATs. They don't register with us, they have to register through College Board. So we asked them in advisory to register for the SATs. To set up their College Board account, and then to link their PSAT scores to a brain cramp.
College Board.
Khan Academy, sorry, Khan Academy. Khan Academy. Khan Academy is a very effective tool for SAT prep. What they do is they take those specific PSAT scores and they set up a program for the student to practice and prepare for the SATs based on their individual scores. It's free, and College Board doesn't usually give anything away for free. And it's been around for about 3 or 4 years now, and it's getting rave reviews. So that's probably the most effective way. If you do want to go one of those other routes of tutoring, and you can afford to do that, or a program, I would say probably the Bridgewater program still has room. That's probably the most cost-effective as far as doing a program. And I would try to sign up for the one that leads into the test that you plan on taking. In March, you should start, the student should be developing a list by doing college searches through Naviance. and they should be registering to take their first SAT. We recommend taking the May SAT. We are a test center for May. They do not have to take it here. They can take it anywhere they would like to, but they're usually more comfortable taking it at their own school. And you don't want to have to go for a long ride that morning before you take a test. So we recommend the May ones. Why? Because we'll get those scores back before school ends. So we can look at them, we can try to answer questions, we can help assist the students in their college searches. If May is absolutely not an option, you've got some sort of other commitments, then I would absolutely make sure you get the June one in under your belt. The scores will probably come in after school gets out, although with all the snow days, you might still be here for those results. But I would recommend that you, to absolutely get an SAT under your belt this spring. And the deadline for the May 5th SAT is April 6th. I wouldn't wait to the very end, because once the test center fills up, then you're going to have to go to the next test center. So you're not signing up with us, they're just using our building that day. In April, the National College Fair makes its way to Boston. On April 12th, we got the dates backwards. It's April 12th where it says on your own. We're actually doing a field trip that day. So when your students hear the announcement, they should sign up. We're taking one bus load, so it's first come, first served. April 13th is actually the on your own day. So it's backwards in the book. And we apologize for that. It's actually a half day here for the students. So in April, the students should start narrowing down their lists. They should also start setting up tours and interviews with colleges. April vacation is a great time to get out on the campuses. The weather's getting a little bit nicer, and you can do. It's going to be they're walking tours, so you're going to be outside for a lot. It's important to get on campus and see the colleges. Everybody looks happy in the pictures that you see. It's always a sunny day. They're all wearing their college T-shirts. Never rains. It's always beautiful. You have to get on campus, and I believe our panel will talk a little bit about that later when they get up here. So April vacation, all you need to do is just call the admissions office. Usually it's a pre-recorded message in a lot of places that just says we're doing tours on this hour or doing information sessions on the next hour, and that's the way they just run that back and forth all day long. Not a lot of schools do interviews. But if they do, take advantage of it. And then, as I said, we're going to have a college planning night, part 2, what you should be doing over the summer. In May, we got some deadlines for SATs and ACTs, and continue to research and narrow down your list. And then in June, most importantly, before you leave for the summer, make sure you get a commitment from a teacher to write a letter of recommendation for you. Very, very important, because they do not have to write them. Some teachers get inundated with requests. The junior teachers tend to be the ones that get asked a lot because they've seen the students most recently for the longest period of time. You don't want to ask a teacher you had freshman year and you haven't had since. You want something that's a little bit more current. So you don't, so the teachers are doing this in their own time, and some of them might just say, you know what, I can't write anymore. I've got too many to write at this point. So beat your peers to the punch and make sure you get a commitment. You don't have, that's all you have to do is just get the commitment from the teacher. On page 2, it just it's a word from guidance, and that just explains what we do and what the student does and what the parent does. We don't do the search for you. We don't get you into college. What gets you into college is your transcript and the work that you've done over the last 3 years and your first quarter grades, and your essay and all the other stuff. We will assist you in any way we can. We'll help you do searches. We'll make recommendations. But ultimately, it is on the student to make sure the work is getting done. We have no problem if parents want to come in with their junior or senior, depending on the time of year, and sit down and talk to us about what needs to get done. We're happy to do that also. On page 3, It just gives you a little bit of a time frame of what needs to be done by April and information you should have and things to pay attention to. Pay close attention to deadlines as we get onto page 4 and 5 with the testing information. Colleges are very unforgiving when it comes to deadlines. If you miss it, there's probably 100 to 1,000 more people behind you that have the same qualifications or better. They'll say you're a great candidate, reapply next year. A phone call from mom and dad isn't going to work. A phone call from the guidance counselor isn't going to work. They want to talk to the students, the person that's going to be there. So it's really important that you start taking deadlines seriously, and that you realize that if it's something important, that's the place you want to be, that you get your stuff in by that deadline. As far as the testing goes, if you miss a deadline, they're just going to charge you late fees. So you want to try to avoid that.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Since there's no projection, can you bring up the
Thank
house
you.
lights so we can read these a little bit easier?
Please.
Can you guys bring up the house lights for us, please? Thank you.
Thank you.
So the information for the ACT and the SATs are there on page 4. And then on page 5 is the SAT subject test. There's not a lot of colleges that want subject tests. You probably have maybe 75 that require them, maybe another 75 that recommend subject tests. Don't take them for the sake of taking tests. More tests is not a good strategy. As you go through the search this spring, start talking to colleges and asking them, do I need the SAT subject test? Now, if you're looking at most competitive level schools on down, you're not going to need them, okay? Our state schools aren't going to ask you for subject tests. If you're looking at very elite schools, like Ivy League schools, they're probably going to want to see some subject tests. If you're going into a specialized program, some nursing programs want to see a subject test in biology. So those are all very good questions to ask when you go on tours. Okay, on page 6 is information of how to get to the guidance website. And so when you get to the Middleborough High School website, you just follow those directions there about us, department's guidance, and then the most important links there right now for you will be the junior information link and the direct link to Naviance. And for the parents, that's where you're going to log on and set up your accounts. So for all of you that did get your temporary password today, on the right-hand side, when you get onto Naviance, I think it says, I'm new here, or I need to register, something like that. And that's when you click there and you put in your temporary password. It's going to ask you to create your own password. So once you create that password, the next time you go in, you go to the left-hand side of Naviance, where it asks for your email address and the password that you created, and that's how you log on to Naviance. And again, we apologize that we don't have the visual on the screen to show you how to do that. At the bottom of page 6, we showed the students today when they log on to their home page on page 7, where that arrow is pointing to the right, it says document library. There's certain forms that are in there that are going to need to be filled out by the juniors and submitted to the guidance counselors with teachers. One of them is the activities worksheet. It's kind of like a resume. It's an important form for the guidance counselor. It does not go to the teachers. It does not go to the teachers. The teachers should not be writing about extracurricular activities if they don't have first-hand knowledge. So, for example, if you're in the art club and you play sports, the teacher doesn't need to know that unless they are your advisor for the art club or the coach for the sport that you play. The college admissions counselors don't want to read a laundry list from a teacher that has no first-hand knowledge of those things. The guidance counselor writes, they want the teacher to write the academic reference, the experience in the classroom. And there's a form in the document library that we're going to show you in part 2 of the workshop that they'll fill out for the teacher. The activity sheet goes to the guidance counselor along with another form we'll show you at the next workshop. And then when we hit this time next year, when the scholarship booklet is released, that activity sheet is the second page of the scholarship application. So it's being used for 2 purposes. So it's important for the student to start filling out that activity sheet now, because we don't want them to sit down in the fall and say, what was it I did 4 years ago? They can start filling out that stuff now. They can save it under the About Me tab in the journal, in Naviance. Any Word documents they want to save in that journal that are college-related, that's where it all goes. And I would recommend their essays go in there. Anything college-related should be saved in that journal, so it's all in one spot. Okay, so before we start doing the college search, we ask the students to do a self-appraisal. Now, the last 2 years, we've had them using Naviance and doing things like the Strengths Explorer, the Do What You Are, the Learning Style Inventory, the Career Interest Profile, and the Career Cluster, the Cluster Finder. Honestly, some of them did it, some of them didn't do it, but we tried. They can still do it if they didn't do it during their advisory. My suggestion is before you start doing college searching, I would at least do the Do What You Are. That's a career interest inventory that will correlate their interests with different careers, and it is a lot of really valuable information that will help them narrow down the areas that they're interested in. They don't, a lot of students are stressing out because they don't know what they want to major in. That's okay, but they need to be thinking about and using these tools that are here to kind of identify areas of strength and things that they might be interested in, so when they do their college search, they end up at a school that's going to give them some choices. Under official things in the About Me tab is their profile. We ask the students to go in there and make sure that the information that's been loaded in is correct, and they can certainly add anything that has not been uploaded in there. And now we get to the matching of the self to the school. After you've gone and you've done, look at those self-assessments, you can start getting into the college search piece. We recommend using Naviance. There are other search tools you can use. College Board has one, there's a website on page 9. The Princeton Review has one, but Naviance is a pretty comprehensive one. And like I said, you can save everything right there. And the nice thing about Naviance too is once they start loading the colleges and they're thinking about, once they decide if they want to apply, they can just click on it and move it over to colleges they're applying to, and then they electronically request their transcripts, and then we send all of their records out electronically through Naviance. So I would really encourage them to use Naviance for everything, because that's the way that's what we do, and they're going to have to go in there eventually anyways. Word to the wise, organize. I can't stress this enough. Create folders, whatever you need to do. If you get it, I'm sure you guys have gotten all kinds of mail since they started taking the PSATs last year. If it's information you're not interested in, don't hold on to it, just get rid of it. But start creating files, and a lot of parents and students do spreadsheets to kind of say this school's offering this school doesn't have this, and they kind of have something that they can compare and contrast. The more organized you are, the easier this will be for you. So to do the search, you go to the colleges tab at the top of the Naviance page, and then there's a bunch of different college searches. You go to college research, and I just do the simple college search. There's a super match in there also, which I wouldn't do right away, because sometimes a lot of schools don't show up in that super match for some reason. But there is good information in there. I would do the traditional college search. What that does, it's going to ask you, are you looking for a 2-year school or a 4-year school? Are you looking for a public school or a private school? How big is the school that you want to go to? Geographic location. They're going to ask a whole bunch of different questions. They're going to ask what majors you're thinking about. So there's about 6,000 schools in this program, and this will help narrow the list down very quickly. I wouldn't get too specific, so I was telling the juniors earlier today, if you play sports here, but you weren't really thinking, I'm probably not going to play in college, but you see, oh yeah, they got football, you click football. If that school doesn't have a football program, then it's not going to show up on the list. So for example, Boston University got rid of their football program about 15 years ago. That a school like BU would never show up if they click that. If they're serious about playing at the NCAA level, certainly they could click on it. If they would be just as happy playing intramural or getting together with friends and tossing the ball around, I would not click. There's questions about minority, minority status. If it's important, click it. If it's not, I'd probably skip it. Religious affiliation, for some people I know that's an important piece of their education, but if it's just something that it could be, it couldn't be, I probably wouldn't, because that would significantly limit your list also. So just, and when I did the search with the students this morning, I came up with one school out of those 6,000 based on the criteria that we picked. So we had to go back in and we had to say what's most important. So once you go through that, you'll get a nice little list. And you can sort the list by percent accepted to kind of get a sense of how competitive some of those schools are. You can save the list. You can add colleges from that list into colleges I'm thinking about. There's a lot, and you can click on the actual name of the school itself and then find out how much it costs to go to school there. What do they offer? What are they looking for SAT scores and grade point averages, what majors they have, and extracurriculars and all that stuff. So it's a great search engine. I really wish I could have demonstrated it tonight, but go home and try it. I think you really like it. Page 10, some tips for visiting colleges. As I said earlier, it's really important that you do the visit. It's important to speak to other students. Admissions counselors, apologize to our admissions counselors, but they're salespeople. They're not going to lie to you, but they're not going to tell you that, well, this part of our school isn't a great part of our school, and we don't offer that. They'll answer your questions, but you talk to the students. They're closer to age than you. They have the same interests as you. They're more in tune with what your interests are. They're there all day long. The admissions counselors go home at night. So they can really tell you what the culture of the school is and what's going on there, not just in the class, but after hours and all that too. So it's important to make sure you're talking to students also. You can get great information from the admissions folks, and they're great at kind of helping you navigate through, but the students will really help you kind of fine-tune that part of the search. On page 11, questions to ask. So there's a bunch of admissions questions. The classroom, how big are the classrooms? Do you see yourself in a class of 200 people, a lecture hall, where you might not have access to a professor, or would you be more comfortable in a classroom of 35? What types of housing? When you're going on your tour, are they showing you the brand new residence halls that are maybe apartment style, you get your own room? Is that where the freshmen are going to be living? You have to ask these questions. The student life, what's there to do when you're not in the classroom? So there's a lot of questions on that page to think about, a lot of stuff that you probably haven't had to think about over the years. You just go home, you're safe, mom and dad take care of things for you. You're going to be on your own. It's important that you start thinking about what your environment is going to be like, not just in the classroom, but out of the classroom where you're going to be spending most of your time. On page 12, getting on mailing and email lists. Very important to sign up, make sure you're getting the information from the schools that you need. And then some upcoming events. We talked about the college fair. The college planning for juniors is coming up, part 2, on April 26th. The college application boot camp is the last week of July, and then in August. And that boot camp is, I would strongly encourage you to go to that boot camp. Our senior that is here will be talking about it. But if you talk to any of the seniors that went last year, they said it was well worth their time. They had their essay and their application pretty much done when they left the boot camp last summer. And then we'll have college planning for seniors and their families that are supposed to applying next September, and a special financial aid workshop in October where we'll call in an expert to actually talk about how to navigate the financial aid process. It's a very complex process that's constantly changing. We are not experts in it, so every year we call in an expert to help guide you through it. I wouldn't worry about financial aid right now. Don't worry about scholarships right now. Right now, it's about college searching. And then in the summer and in the fall, it's about making sure you get all those applications out and all the pieces that go with it. And then in October, that's when you start the financial aid piece. And next week, we're launching our scholarship booklet for the seniors. So don't worry about the financial piece until after. It's an important factor, obviously, but don't let the money limit you to the schools that you're applying to. Let the financial aid process take its place and see if they're going to give you a deal that's going to cost, that's going to be reasonable for you, so you're not going to be in debt for the rest of your life. If you go on to the sample forms page, or to page 3, is a sample activities worksheet. And that worksheet is just, but most importantly, see what types of things that are on there, see how it's worded, make sure that you're expressing yourself so people, when people read it, they know exactly what it is that you've done. You can add more lines if you need them. And then on page 3 is a glossary of terms. You're going to start hearing a lot of acronyms and a lot of things that you haven't heard before, and most likely they will be in the back of this booklet. So refer back there. And in the back of the book, there's a page to take notes if you'd like to do that. And that is the end of the workbook piece. And what we'll do now is we will call up our panel, and we will start talking about how to best prepare yourselves, and we'll talk about their experiences going through the process. Find our panel. Okay, so we have right to my right Sarah Stearns, who is a member of the class of 2018, who is going to talk a little bit what it was like from her perspective as a student going through the process. Next to her, we have Toby Eugenio, who is a parent of a current senior, and she will talk about her experience and how much she had to get involved in the process. Shannon Fernando Cole is an admissions counselor at Bridgewater State University, I'm sorry, that's from my old days. And Heather Mello, who is the Senior Assistant Dean of Admissions at Stonehill College. And we're going to talk a little bit, we'll start with matching yourself to school, and what some of the best things the students can do from your perspectives. And is there somebody who wants to start, or should I pick somebody? Okay, Sarah's going to start with you.
So basically what I did was I took the ASVAB because at the time, my sophomore year, I wasn't even thinking about college, but my dad wanted me to start looking at colleges and was trying to have me pursue for the Air Force Academy, which was not my path, but it certainly helped me and kind of opened my eyes to like what maybe I might be capable of, just kind of like career path-wise. Turns out I'm good at mechanics, which I did not know, but that's one of the things that helped me. Another thing that helped me was a website called Mitch, and it basically kind of goes through the college itself and kind of gives it grades of, like sports A, professors A, or they might have, a B for campus. Like it kind of goes through the whole college itself, and that kind of helps me sort through the colleges I wanted to go to or to go visit.
So as a parent, for our journey, we actually started the process probably the summer of sophomore year into junior year, where we spent the time talking about what do you want to do with your life, and my student wasn't super clear on that, and so what we did was we just found spare time. So on a Saturday in October, a Saturday in April, we would find colleges to just go and visit. So I got to be the chauffeur. Sometimes we would travel with a classmate, so it was nice for my child to have another classmate to talk to in the back of the car. I really wasn't part of any of the conversation. As we got closer, we started traveling to those colleges alone so that she could do some thinking about where she wanted to be, but not doing it all in one fell swoop. So don't do all of them in April vacation. do 1 or 2 in February vacation, pick a couple of Saturdays. We did find that any break, like April break, February break, there was a lot of people at the colleges, but when we would go to a weekend event, it would be a lot more personal, and so that offered a different experience. And then ultimately, just started talking about what was important to her, and a big school, a small school, the city, not the city, and really just enforcing that the school is about where you feel most successful. Where does it feel like the right place for you? Because you're the one that's going to have to take advantage of the school. And I would say the other thing that we did, I kind of stayed in the background, as did my husband, but we started just sharing articles periodically, like, here's some data about students who do really well in college, and it tends to be the students that find the just right place. It doesn't matter the name of the college, it doesn't matter how much you paid or didn't pay, but it's the place where you can see yourself succeeding and you take advantage of the opportunities afforded to you. And that's kind of what we just kept saying over and over again, and just basically being the chauffeur and just really encouraging that, hey, we have a Saturday coming up in 3 weeks. Would you like to look at some other colleges? And being able to make those comparisons, because you don't know what a dorm looks like. In Boston, they look very different than locally. And so kind of making those comparisons and then starting to pick. And going to a college as a no, the college that our daughter, I think, is going to be choosing, we were on our way to the dentist's office, and it happened to be in Dartmouth, Mass. And I was like, let's just go there. She's like, it's too close. I'm like, yeah, but we're here. We're already here. You took a day out of school. It's probably going to be a no, but we'll get a no. And right now, it's not such a no. So just going to some just to get a no is kind of cool too, because then you have a basis for that no. So.
That's excellent. Thank you for sharing that. And to go off of what you guys have already shared, I think there obviously are a lot of factors to consider. I think that when you're looking into schools and you're doing the searches online, I think it's so easy to just kind of see all these different schools and not know kind of what sets them apart. So I definitely think doing a self-analysis of what is important to you as a student, academically, what are you looking to go into, and does that school offer what it is that you are looking for? And then obviously academics is only going to be a piece of what you are doing when you're at school. So does it offer those extracurriculars and those things that you're really passionate about that you want to spend your free time doing? Is it cost efficient? So considering that, looking into the public versus private, looking at the size of the school, and like Mr. Goldman was saying, do you want to be sitting in a class of 35 students like you do now, or do you want to be sitting in a class of 200 or 300 students? Are all really important pieces to think about, and it's very much a personal journey, and I think that you can absolutely look to your parents for guidance in that, but at the end of the day, I think you need to really consider what it is that you as a student are looking for, because this is going to be your experience.
I would echo the resounding theme here of really being honest with yourself. I think in this phase of your life, being a high school student, it's really easy to be influenced by your peers, and especially when it comes to the college process, which can feel overwhelming. Sometimes the easy route is to do what your friends are doing, and ultimately that's not going to be necessarily the best decision for you. And so taking seriously the fact that this is your future, college, thinking about your career and the coming years of your life, I mean, this is a huge step. So you really need to take it into your own hands first and foremost, and really start being independent, and again, thinking about who you are and what environment is going to be the best fit for you. I know right now you might not know exactly what you want to do, and I can assure you that is totally fine. We see a lot of students who apply undeclared. Even students who come in with a major declared will oftentimes change their major along the way. And that's completely fine, because at this point, you're going to school every day. You haven't really been out there. You haven't explored everything that there is, all these different career paths. You might not even be aware of them yet. So you definitely want to give yourself that chance. There are a small number of programs and careers that have a really set pathway that do require an earlier decision. So anything in pre-health, pre-med, pre-vet, engineering, if you want to go any of those paths, then you definitely want to think about that now, because requirements for those programs can be stricter, and it's just a more set path over the course of your 4 years and then getting into graduate school that you need to think about. But aside from those, most careers you can get to by following a wide array of different paths, and so there are so many different majors that you can choose from and end up in many different positions. So
If you're not sure, I just want to take some of that pressure off of you a little bit. Colleges also have what we call our course catalog, and you can often just jump on a college's website and search for their course catalog, and I think it's such a great resource just to peruse that. Look at some majors that you think you might be interested in and read the course descriptions of what you'd actually be studying, and that can sometimes give you a better sense of direction than maybe just the title of a certain major. But as you're applying to schools, obviously think about what they offer, if they have certain requirements for certain programs to get into them. If you are accepted to that institution, do you have to be admitted to a certain program? Or can you easily switch between different schools and different majors? Those are all important factors that you want to think about up front. So again, if you're in that place where you're not sure, you want to make sure that you're not just applying to a school that only has business, say, and then you end up wanting to do something totally different. You want to be an English major and they don't have that. So if you're a little more unsure, then applying to some schools that have options and flexibility can definitely be a good choice. And then again, I think size is a huge factor, thinking about that classroom environment. Are you going to have those relationships with your faculty? Are you going to get to be interactive in the classroom? Do you want more of that support? Do you want to have those more personal conversations? Or are you super independent and you don't mind being in a huge lecture hall with hundreds of other students? And there's no right or wrong answer here. Again, it's just what is the best fit for you. But cost is definitely a factor, and I'm sure that we'll talk more about that. I think one of the misconceptions, with public and private is private institutions do have really high price tags typically that you're going to see. And I would just encourage you to not, as you're starting your college search process, don't be turned off by that initially, because that upfront cost is truly not what the majority of students pay to go to those institutions. Private institutions have a lot of funding to give out, both their own funding as well as federal funding that you can apply for. So oftentimes your package is going to look so different from that upfront number. So I think, as Mr. Goldman was saying earlier, that's not really a factor to consider at this point, because it's going to end up looking so different down the road, and you really want to focus on finding that best fit. And then there will be time later on to make sure that it is a financial fit as well. And then, as it's already been mentioned, the social life of campus, if you want to be involved, are you going to live on campus, are you going to commute, are you going to do clubs, are you going to do athletics? I mean, all of those are very personal decisions that you just need to think critically about. What do you want your college experience to look like?
Another thing I'd also add is definitely reaching out to your friends if you had in the senior class. I mean, even any of them would probably be open to just talking about their college, because they're obviously really proud to be with the college that they're in. But definitely take up the opportunity to ask them, hey, can I come visit your school? That was one of the things that I did and I found very helpful, because they can show you kind of the ins and outs of what they do and kind of the campus life, and you can really get the full experience. And another thing for career-wise, I kind of knew what I wanted to do, but I also wanted to get experience to actually see if that's what I wanted to do. So I found somebody I knew and shadowed with them as a nurse, and just kind of got the feel for it to see if that's what I wanted to do. And it kind of helped clear for me that's the path that I want to go to. So I would take up any opportunities that you can.
And I would, similarly, we encouraged our child to use her summertime to do some of that shadowing. So, you have those weird blocks, and she was thinking about some different opportunities in the medical field as well. And to narrow it down, we reached out, and she reached out to people who are in the field and shadowed, and it really helped her get things down to a more exact science. And so using some of that summertime, so she did 5 or 6 shadows over the summer, and really was able to start to understand what it is she liked the most about particular jobs. So if she could observe in the ER, was it the PA, was it the surgeon, was it the nurse? And it made a massive difference in her passion for what she wanted to make happen. So it's worth taking a little time and reaching out to people in the field that your child might want to pursue.
We have a great senior intern program here that a lot of our seniors are taking advantage of. Are you doing internships now? What did you do your internship? So some of our students just interning here in school, doing some work for the teachers. A lot of them are some really interesting ones off campus. So we have people over at Toby Hospital that want to go into the medical field, people in local businesses that want to go into whatever that business is. They're getting some really great experiences. So as seniors next year, take advantage of the opportunity to do that, and don't just take one just for the sake of not taking a class and saying, well, I'll watch the teacher's desk for during my free period. Do something that's going to be meaningful and help give you an experience also. We also have the fire science program, which is a 10-credit course. It's double for a double block for half a year. For the people thinking about going into that field, it's a tremendous experience and it's a tremendous leg up. I don't know any other high school that offers a program like that. So that we have some really unique opportunities here at Middleborough High School, and just take advantage of those opportunities. Now juniors, don't answer this because I asked you this morning. For the parents, anybody want to take a guess what the most popular major is? Undecided. Undecided. And it's okay. We have a few juniors that are hesitant to apply to college because they're like, I don't know what I want to do, and it's a lot of money. That's okay. That's why we really encourage them to explore those the stuff, the work that they did for their career planning in Naviance, and think about areas that they're interested in. So, you know, for an undecided student, you're not going to apply to a business school. You're going to apply to a school that's going to have a lot of options for you. So that's part of the search process to make sure if you're taking that psychology class and you kind of like it, well, make sure they have psychology as a major at the school you're applying to. You know, you really enjoyed some of our computer graphics courses. You know, make sure they have a major like that at the school. So it's okay. The first 2 years, you end up taking a lot of what they call general ed requirements. You take the English course, the math course, the social science course. You know, you have to jump through a few hoops just like you do when you're in high school. So take it, you know, so you do that, and then you have to take some electives. That's how I ended up finding my major. I ended up taking a couple of electives to fill my schedule, and I really enjoyed them. So the next semester, I took another one out of that department. And next thing you know, at the end of my sophomore year, I was declaring my major in that field. So, so don't let that limit you from applying to schools and getting the experience if that's what you really want to do. The interview and the visit. Now, I know a lot of schools don't do interviews anymore, but maybe we can. Let's start with the admissions folks on the importance of the visit to the school.
So as we've kind of talked about already, I definitely think that the visit is one of the most important pieces. I definitely always encourage students to check out as many schools as possible because that's going to tell you, you're going to get a feeling when you're on different campuses, and that feeling's going to tell you a lot about whether or not that's the right fit for you. You're going to know when you step on the campus, when you conclude your tour, whether or not it's going to be a good fit for you. So I always, like I said, I always encourage students to check out as many schools as possible. And when you're there, ask lots of questions. Those are students that are going to be leading you on that tour, and they're living that college life experience. So definitely pick their brains and find out what they think of the school and what their extracurricular opportunities are, what their majors are, and find out if you can connect with students that are in the majors that you're looking into to really get more information. And I definitely always encourage students as well, if you're not able to connect with a student, to reach out to the department chair and chat with them about what the major looks like, because our department chairs are always more than happy to talk to students about what the major is and what it entails and what our students are doing within those majors, because we have some students that are doing some really incredible work in the field that they're studying. And just so you guys know, for the visit for Bridgewater, we do have an online registration process. So basically, if you haven't visited the website, it's just going to ask you to create an account. And then once you do that, it does give you full access to when we're offering visits. And we do a variety of different visit opportunities, anything from the daily campus tours, which we offer twice a day. We offer info sessions every Friday. We do Saturday tours, we do holiday tours. April and February vacation are very popular. And then we also offer admitted student days for students that are admitted to check out the campus and see kind of more in depth. And we do those in the springtime. And then for students that maybe haven't gotten to see the campus in the fall, a really great opportunity is our fall preview days. So basically students are not only getting a tour of the campus at that point, but they're seeing more information about specific majors, they're meeting faculty members, they're having student and parent panels, and just really getting to learn more about the institution as a whole. So like I said, I definitely think that that visit is such a pivotal piece in the picture, because it's going to tell you so much about how you feel, and you're gonna be able to picture yourself there or not. So definitely, like I said, check it out. And Bridgewater's right up the street, so definitely please feel free to come give us a visit. And if you do come in and chat with me. We do always have admissions counselors there. As Mr. Goldman said, a lot of schools don't tend to require interviews anymore, and we don't require an interview at all. We don't even really offer them. But if you do have any questions, we always have an admissions counselor available to talk with you, answer any questions that you may have or anything like that, or direct you to the right place to answer any additional questions with departments or other resources on campus as well. So definitely take advantage of those visits.
I absolutely agree. It is certainly critical to get on college campuses. You might have a perception of a school that when you walk on the campus, it's going to be completely flipped upside down. Again, that sense and that feeling that you get when you're there might be very different from what you're thinking as you're just looking at the website or hearing about it from someone else who goes there. So as much as you can explore for yourself and get that experience, you definitely want to do that. And don't feel limited by the Office of Admission or the tour guides either. I mean, certainly sign up. We have an online registration process as well. Most institutions do. And you want to take advantage of that. But also, I mean, when your tour is done, feel free to go sit in the dining commons, talk with students who aren't necessarily official tour guides for the Office of Admission, and get that real and authentic perspective, and just ask them what their experience has been like and how they find the school and how they're relating with their peers and their professors. So you can definitely take that into your own hands and do your own research outside of what we offer too. We, like many other institutions, and as Shannon was elaborating on, we offer so many different ways and types of visits that you can come for. So throughout the spring, we also have February vacation, April vacation visits. Those are super busy weeks, so generally you're going to be with a really large crowd, which is totally fine, and it's a great time to come. If you're looking for a smaller visit, sometimes coming outside of those weeks on another day. We offer programs pretty much every Monday through Friday and a lot of Saturdays as well. So whatever works best for you, it's very easy to get on to schools' websites and just sign up right there and come for the tour and information session. Typically recommend doing the information session in addition to the tour. Sometimes schools will offer one or the other. Usually if you get an information session, you also get the tour, but sometimes they will just have a tour. If you do have a chance to get to the info session, it's a great opportunity to connect typically with the admission staff, which you won't get just with the tour, and to get some of that more admission-specific information. We also offer shadow days, so if you want to come and shadow a current student, spend a day with them on campus, eat lunch, go to class, that's another great opportunity to get an inside look on what it's like to be a student at our institution. We also have preview days, but we actually offer them over the summer, so those more academically focused programs with our faculty and current students in certain majors. So if you can't make it, during the school year, summer's a better time. There is some opportunity for special programming at that time as well. That's a little more focused than just the tour and info session. And then in the fall, we always have large open house events, which are open to everyone. You can come. Pretty much everyone on campus is there. So a great time to connect again with faculty, staff, and current students. In regard to interviews, we do offer them. Ours are actually led by current students. They're not led typically by the admissions staff. Sometimes we might have a counselor conduct one, but typically you're going to get a current student. But it's a great way to come, express your interest in that school, have a personal conversation with a student, and also give us some context. So, you're in class right now, you're building your transcript, you're doing different things, involved in different ways. And for you to come and have a personal conversation and tell us more about who you are and give us additional context that we might not get in the application is really, really meaningful to us and something that we're going to look at closely. So that's definitely something great to take advantage of. You do want to know what you're walking into, so get a sense from the school's website if you're signing up for an interview. Am I meeting with a current student? Or am I meeting with a member of the professional staff? Certainly if you're meeting with a member of the professional staff, you do want to do things like maybe bring a copy of your unofficial transcript and talk about that with them. I wouldn't necessarily do that with a student because it's more of your personal and private information. You don't necessarily have to share with a peer. But with a professional staff member, that's certainly an appropriate conversation to have and to talk through. But I think one of the misconceptions about interviews is that it's sort of a test and we're looking for specific answers, and that is just definitely not the case. When students come to campus for interviews, we really just want to get to know who you are, and the best interviews are the ones where students come in and they're engaged and willing to share, and they're talkative, and really the interviews that are least productive are the ones where students come in and they're so nervous to say something wrong that they barely say anything at all, and so we really don't get a sense of who they are as a person or an applicant. So don't be shy. We're all friendly, whether it's a student or a staff member. We really just want to get to know you, and so the more you can engage with us and ask thoughtful questions and share about your experience and your interests in the institution, the better that interview is going to go, and the more productive it'll be both for you and for us as well.
Heather, I'm going on an interview. I'm a junior. What do I wear?
Wear your very best. So you want to make an impression. Again, you're applying, and you could potentially be meeting with the person who's going to read your application, or at the very least, someone who's communicating with the person who's going to be reviewing it. So, I mean, I know at this stage you may not have a suit, which is fine, but if you can dress at least business casual, and if you do have a suit to wear or something that looks really professional, I would definitely recommend pulling that out of your closet. I mean, I don't want to push you to feel like you need to spend money on something, but you definitely want to look as polished and as best as you can, and think about presenting yourself in a professional manner, because you are going to create a first impression, and we are going to take all of that into consideration, whether that's consciously or subconsciously. You just want to advocate for yourself in the best possible way. So those details are really important to think about.
So I should leave the flip-flops at home.
Oh yes, leave the flip-flops at home. And the jeans probably not the best choice either.
A couple things come to mind. One, with the larger schools, there are particular admissions counselors that are for your area. So if you are going to connect with an admissions counselor, find out who that person is that handles South Coast, for example. That will help in the process. And if you can book an interview with that person who's actually going to be looking for your application, that's going to give you an opportunity to have a connection already, which we did find that beneficial. We did find that nursing, for example, which is what my daughter chose to pursue, in some of the schools, that's a program that they'll take a certain amount and then they're full. And so if you know that's an area that you are going in and you're not undecided, that you really do want to get your applications in. And we were told by a myriad of colleges that, by October 1st, get your stuff in. If you want that opportunity, don't wait, because once they're full, you don't have the same opportunity to get into those programs. And that goes for some programs, not all, but we definitely did find that. The other thing that we, on our interviews and on our tours, we're having some similar questions so that you can be comparative. So if you know that you're going to 5 different schools, asking questions like, what's the pass rate on the exam, depending on the major that maybe you want to study, so that you have a way to look at the colleges. So if, 86% of students are passing the nursing exam at the end of 4 years versus 68%, that certainly should be factoring into your decision that you're going to pay for 4 years of college and actually have a less of a chance of passing the exam. We did find most of the time that they were pretty much the same, but not everywhere. And so sometimes you want to do a little digging on that. We absolutely use niche as well. And spent a lot of time on that program, so we highly recommend it because it just gives you more food for thought in that process. And we did take advantage of interviews when it was an opportunity, because if anything, it's just an opportunity to practice, because someday you got to go to a job. So it's a time for students to figure out what that looks like. And then the last thing I would say is that juniors, right now, you should be creating your list and your resume. Just start putting things down, because it's much, much harder to fill out your application and to go to those schools and interviews without, knowing what you've done, it's a lot harder to go backwards. So start recording, hey, I helped out on the winter ball committee, I was at the, etc. So document it now, so you don't have to backtrack later because it's much more painful the other way.
I see Sarah writing a whole bunch of notes over
Yeah.
here.
So basically, I was one of those seniors that kind of sat here and was like, oh, well, that's like a year from now. And why, like, I wait for last minute, I'm a procrastinator. So I started the whole college search and visiting colleges a little later, and probably I like strongly don't recommend doing this, but I started in the the beginning of this, actually more towards the end of the summer, and then I visited more colleges during the fall where it probably was a little bit more on my plate than I wanted. But there were certain things I did look for, and one of the things was I liked a campus that had trees. If they didn't have trees, it just kind of gave me a weird vibe. Like I wanted to be able to like sit in a grassy area with trees, so like after classes or something, I could just sit down on a nice day. But that was my preference. So a lot of colleges didn't fit that, and that was okay. There were still colleges I applied to that didn't have the trees in the grassy areas, but I think it did have an effect on my decision. Another thing is what I did was I made a list of nursing schools and kind of applied to those schools. And then I eliminated my schools by whether or not they were on the Common App, because then I was applying to too many schools. And just kind of doing my research on the colleges themselves, because that makes a big difference. And that vibe that you get from the college is very true. I didn't really believe in it at first, but definitely once you go on the colleges, you do get that vibe, and you kind of have like an aha moment where it's like, I can see myself going here.
And to Sarah's credit, she was the first one in my office this fall to set up an appointment to make sure she had everything in order so she could apply. And she was I think she was the first person to actually hand in everything we needed so we could process her stuff and send it out. So she might have started late, but she got right on it, and she did a really good job. And she's got a home next fall, so we're very happy for her. A couple of things. The Common App was just brought up. I'm sure a lot of you don't know what the Common App is. We'll talk much more about the Common App in the next workshop, but it is one application. I believe there's 700 schools that are subscribed to it now. It grows every year. Not every school is on it, but there's a lot. So it's one application, it's one essay, and there might be a supplemental piece that you have to fill out specific to the school on it, but it saves a whole lot of time. So we'll get into that. It's not available until August 1st. So when we have the college application boot camp, it'll be available so they can start filling it out. And we'll talk much more about it in the next workshop. The other thing, we were talking about the summer visits. The reality is, for some schools, you have to do a summer visit. I mean, if you're looking at schools that are quite a distance away, you might spend a family vacation in the summer going out to visit some schools. But if you're looking at local schools, try the best you can to get there during the school year, because you really want to see these campuses with students on them. There's not nearly as many students there in the summertime. It's very quiet. And it's the students that make up the flavor of the campus, you know, and you really want to try to experience it with students there. But you know, the reality is, it's just some schools that you're going to have to probably do in the summer. But try to limit those if you possibly can do that. Anything else about the essay and the interview and the visit? Okay. We're going to move on to the application and the essay. Good transition. The application is, in a lot of cases, the only representation of you that they are going to see. Most of them are online now, so that helps with the neatness of the applications, but I do remember that there are still some that are handwritten. There's a few schools that don't do online. And I do remember the days where students would throw those applications in their book bags. They get all curled up and ripped in the corners. There'd be coffee stains on them. They'd scribble on them. You know, you could barely read their writing on them and everything. Not a good impression, especially if that's all they have in front of you is that piece of paper. So just make sure that when you're filling out those applications, that you're taking the time and you're getting them proofread by your parents. We look at the applications also, the common application we go over with the students. But we're checking if content and spelling, we're not going to know if they misspelled their sibling's name or if they put the wrong social security number in or something like that. So it's important for the parents to proof those to make sure that that everything is accurate and the best representation possible. So I'm sure our admissions counselors have some stories they could tell us about some of the stuff that they've seen with the application and essays. And also, when you're with the essays, I probably would not make them specific to the college unless they're asking for it to be specific to the college. I got a friend of mine who was an admissions counselor at Boston University, and he was reading an application, and it was summed up at the end, and they said, and for those reasons, that's why I want to attend Northeastern University. Oops, got to change the last line. Now, they know that happens sometimes, but again, it just goes to the quality and the neatness and the time and all that. So I know when I'm writing letters of recommendation, I usually, unless it's Bridgewater because I'm an alum, and I like to let them know that I'm writing it for them, I usually say it's for those reasons why I recommend the student to your institution. So this way, I don't make a mistake like that. So just a little bit of a tip from my end. I'll let the admissions counselors talk a little bit about some of the things maybe they've seen or how to best prepare yourself for when you send the stuff over to them for review.
So for the application process, Bridgewater does have their own application on our website, but something that's exciting that I would like to share with you guys, and you guys are the first group I get to share this with, we are actually going on to the Common App for the fall 19 class, so that when you guys will be applying. So again, if you have an account, if you visited the campus or plan on visiting the campus and you create that account, that information comes over into your application, so it does take a couple steps away. But again, if you are just doing the Common App and you're filling it out for a bunch of different schools, you will have that option for us for the fall of 19, which is very exciting. We have a couple different deadlines. So we have early action deadlines and we have regular decision deadlines. And those deadlines are the same every single year. So early action is November 15th and regular decision is February 15th. For early action, I always encourage students, if you're thinking about Bridgewater and you're kind of serious about it, and even if you're a little unsure, I never think that early action is a bad decision. So there's some perks to it. It's a non-binding. You're not committing to coming to Bridgewater. You're not telling us, yes, I will definitely be there. But you still will have the same May 1st decision deadline. You're going to find out the decision earlier, so you're going to find it out if you got in or not around December versus waiting until the springtime, the spring semester, I guess. And one of the added perks to applying early action is, so the only thing you need to have in by that deadline is the application, and we're going to see your transcripts and we're going to look at your transcripts, and if you have a 3.0 or higher, that's really all we'll need. So if you have 3.0 or higher, we can admit with just that for the early action phase because it's a lot less competitive. Even though it is such a great perk, not a ton of people take advantage of it, so we do have a little bit more flexibility with it. So again, that 3.0 or higher, you get admitted with that, which is very exciting. Obviously, if you send in your test scores, we will look at that. And that also leads me to the point that we are a test optional school. So you can send us your test scores, but you are not required to. But I always tell students, if you do a good job, there's no harm in sending those test scores over. And typically the rule of thumb is if you have that 3.0 or higher, it doesn't really matter. If you have below a 3.0, I encourage students to try and send them because it could be the deciding factor because we follow a sliding scale through the Board of Higher Education. So basically what that means is the lower the GPA is, the higher the test scores would need to be. So just kind of keep that in mind. And then again, the regular decision deadline, February 15th. So if you're you're just kind of not prepared to submit everything in November and you want to take your time a little bit more on the application, which is totally fine, and plenty of students do that, and you'll still get a decision from us just the same, and you'll still have that May 1st deadline. You're more than welcome to do that as well and wait that out. And you don't have to worry about, paper applications or anything like that, because it is all online for you. But yeah, so that's kind of a little bit about the applications. In terms of any supplemental information, resumes, letters of recommendation, personal essays, anything like that is all optional, so you don't have to send it to us, but you can, and if you do, we will take a look at it. But just keep that in mind that, you don't have to send it to us if you don't want to, or you're not prepared to, or anything like that. So it's a little bit about the application process, and if I think of anything, I'll come to swing back around.
This is where schools get pretty unique, is sometimes with their application processes. So it's really important to find out what the guidelines and criteria are for each of the schools that you are applying to, and make a spreadsheet, make a calendar, and try to keep track of all that, because it's not going to be standard and consistent across every school. So that's really the first and most important thing to note. Mr. Goldman's advice is definitely sound. You want to make sure that your application is professional. It is a representation of you, and you want to make sure that it's a good one, and you want to pay attention to all of those details and treat every piece of the application as if it is the most important piece, and really give yourself the best chance, for admission at all the schools that you are applying to. We do require a little bit more. We are a common application school. So you fill out the common application. It's, again, a really easy way to fill out one application. You can send to many schools, so there's definitely an advantage in that. But in addition to the common application itself, we do require 2 recommendations, one from a guidance counselor, one from a teacher. If schools are requiring recommendations from teachers, you typically want to make sure that those are from academic teachers who can speak to your performance in the classroom as well as to your character. And those are something, we're going to look really, really closely at those, and they're very important, and they mean a lot to us. And then sometimes schools will allow you to submit supplemental recommendations. So if you have someone else who knows you really well, a music teacher, coach, whatever that might be, a lot of times schools will accept those as well. But if they're asking for teacher recommendations specifically, then make sure you do give them at least one, typically from an academic teacher. The common application has specific essay prompts, so there are several prompts from which you can choose. They're very general. They're meant to be a springboard just to get you thinking. I would say the topic of your essay is obviously important, and again, you always want to keep a professional tone, but it really should be unique and authentic to you. We want to get a sense of who you are as a person, so think about how you can best convey that. I will say, across institutions, what I hear from my colleagues is we all tend to see similar themes and certain topics that come up very often. So essays about sports and sports injuries, grandparents and parents, and service trips are probably some of the ones we see the most. And those can be great essays. However, it's harder. It's more effort to get them to stand out, just because we're seeing them so often. So if you can pick something that's a little bit different, a little bit outside of the box, that can be a good approach, but it doesn't have to be anything life-changing. You can take something really super simple and just write about it in a creative and engaging way that can really capture our attention and help us to connect with you, which is ultimately the goal. But I would recommend spending more time writing your essay than dwelling on what you're going to write about. Pick a topic, settle on it, and then write it really well, because great writing actually makes an essay stand out probably more than anything else. So that's my essay advice. We're also a test optional institution, so you do not need to submit test scores to be considered. We don't require anything additional if you're not submitting tests. Some schools will do that, so just keep that in mind. They might ask for an extra essay or something along those lines if you're choosing to be optional. And then some schools require tests, so sometimes you have to send them. And so that's a really important thing to note. It's always good to look at schools' average test scores, especially if they're test optional and you don't have to submit them. Get on their website, ask your admission counselor, what are your averages? Would you recommend that I submit my scores given where I fall within your applicant pool? That can definitely be a great conversation to have, just to make sure you're best positioning yourself. And I think it's great to have those conversations when it comes to choosing deadlines as well, just because every school is different in the deadlines that they offer and then how they treat their applicant pool at each deadline. So we actually have 4 deadlines. We have early action, which is a November deadline. It's a non-binding commitment. And then we have regular decision, which is our non-binding commitment in January, so a little bit later. But we also have 2 early decision deadlines, an ED1 that's in December, and then an ED2 that's in February, at the beginning of this month. So the early decision, the difference with that one at most schools is that that's a binding commitment. So that's when you're saying this institution is my number 1 choice. I'm definitely coming here. I know this is where I want to be. So if I'm admitted, I'm guaranteeing that I'm joining your class next year, and I am withdrawing my applications from other institutions. So it's really critical to know the difference with that one and the commitment that you are making up front if you apply to a school early decision. Sometimes it can be great if that institution is really competitive and you're going to be willing to make that commitment. That's very meaningful to them. And if you want to get into that school, it can be a great pathway. But you just want to, again, know what you're doing when you sign up for that. And you want to have a conversation with your admission counselor. What deadline and what application process is going to give me the best chance in your pool? Should I apply earlier? Should I wait a little bit later? Maybe I'm doing my best work now in my senior year and I really want you to have a chance to review that when you take your first look at my application. So there can be advantages to the different deadlines, and it's a very individual thing based on you and your transcript and your performance in high school, and also on the institution and what their process and what their criteria is. So definitely having those conversations, especially at the schools you're most interested in, I think is really important. And those are great things to ask when you go on those campus tours and sit in those information sessions and you have that admission professional in front of you. If you can pull them aside after and maybe explain your situation, that's a good time to capture their attention, or sign up for that interview, or just email them or call them on the phone. I mean, we're always happy to field those sorts of questions and help you through the process. So never hesitate to use us as a resource as you're going through this, because I know it can be overwhelming. And again, we don't always make it easy because it is different among different schools. So we want to be as helpful as possible. We want to simplify it as much as we can. So please do reach out to us and allow us to do that for you if we can help.
Well, Sarah and I were talking actually before. She actually had an interesting story about, well, you actually talked a little bit about your visit and how that turned things around for me and everything. But why don't you talk a little bit about your experience with the ESA and the application?
Yeah. So college boot camp was literally a lifesaver for me. That's ultimately what motivated me to start looking at colleges and to start my Common App. And that also gave me enough time to also go talk to Mr. Goldman during the beginning of the school year to make sure I got my Common App completed and that I could check in with him with any questions I had. Also with early action and early decision, I did all early action because early decision for me was too much commitment because I am a little indecisive, and I felt like if I putting down a school for early decision and then me getting accepted there and then say I got accepted to another school and I don't want to go there anymore and I'd rather go to the other school, that was just too much. So early action was kind of the best option for me because that way I can also hear from the school quicker than the regular decision, so I can know as soon as possible. And plus with the field that I'm going into, early action is pretty much recommended to do, if not early decision as well, so because spots do fill up. The application, probably the thing I'd have to say, one of the most common things that happened with the applications that I came across with the schools that I was applying to, it talked a lot about community service and what you've done for your community. So if you have not done any community service, I would start because a lot of schools do look for that. And also, one of the things I struggled with, but that's why you have your teachers and your parents around, is to kind of brag about yourself in your application. Like, don't hold back and be shy because like they said, this is the time where they're trying to get to know you, and if you don't put kind of who you are into the application, they can't get to know you and they can't get the sense of what you're like. And that could ultimately affect whether or not you're accepted into the school. So that's kind of my advice for that.
I think I'm thinking about the fact that I was in your seat last year at this time, and it goes by super fast. A couple of things I know. One, Middleborough does a really good job of preparing our children to work through this process. I would absolutely encourage you to attend every session that is offered by the guidance department. Some of it may be things you already know, but I walked away from every one of these sessions with another piece of information, another website to check out. One of the last sessions, I got some really good links to some scholarships, places, so that we're able to kind of, there's a woman that does scholarship Saturdays, and so those were all things I learned through these sessions. I would also say that just reminding ourselves that it's a team effort, and the team is really here, so encouraging your children to ask the tough questions. If they feel like they don't understand something, to definitely do ask. Hands down, boot camp was one of the best things that I could have paid for my child here at Middleborough High. I mean, she was ready to go October 1st, all applications were in, and I did nothing other than to go, here's a check for boot camp. So I just recommend you don't nag, you don't do anything, but just listen to them tell you how they know how to do the things they need to do to apply for college. So that's really important. And then the other thing, there's one other, definitely asking for recommendations in the spring. I can't reiterate that more because the teachers are busy and the students are going to be asking, and it just gives them a heads up and they can start collecting that information. So yeah, and it's a little different than when I applied to school, so you definitely want to, be aware, but at boot camp, I honestly, hands down, recommend it. So.
And then another thing about college boot camp as well, they usually say that applying to colleges is like very overwhelming. Well, I didn't find it overwhelming, and I feel like that's probably why I'm kind of so calm about it. Or when people ask me about colleges, I was, just kind of had a very relaxed kind of vibe to it. And I found that the kids who didn't take up the opportunity for the college boot camp probably were a little overwhelmed, if not more than overwhelmed, and had a little bit more on their plate, because not only are you trying to finish this essay and do the applications, you're also still in school and you're trying to, make those grades count because colleges are looking at those. So college boot camp, I really stress taking it. The teachers are super helpful, and it's 2 or 3 days, and you work on your essay and they give you feedback on your essay. So they really put you in a good position.
Yeah, and I can't stress enough how important the college boot camp is. I know it's another expense in this very expensive process. The good news is for those students who receive free or reduced lunch, we are going to try to see if we can help out with the costs of the application boot camp. So don't let that be a reason not to do it. See your guidance counselor, and there's a form you can fill out like you would for an SAT fee waiver or an AP fee waiver or anything like that. So don't let that not be a reason. I agree. It's made my job as a guidance counselor a lot easier because we're doing this in a much more timely way. And it's really just taking a lot of stress off of the students. Their essays are done. When they walk away from boot camp, their essays are done and they're actually already loaded into the common application before they even meet with the guidance counselors to do that piece of it. So the essay is probably the most time-consuming, if done right, the most time-consuming piece of the whole process. It's not something you want to do in a week after you filled out everything and done all the other busy work. It's something you really want to kind of work on for a while and really make sure that it's really expressing who you are. It's not just a writing sample. It's also an opportunity for you to express who you are to the college admissions counselors. Because they like reading that stuff. They want interesting people on their campuses. They don't want a bunch of people who just get up, eat, study, go to bed, go to class. That'd be kind of a boring place to hang out after 4 years. So they are looking for interesting people. A little tip about the essay: if you're a funny person, it's okay to interject a little bit of humor into your essay. If you're not a funny person, now's not the time to try that. Okay. Let it represent who you are as a person. Any other comments? Yeah.
In regard to the boot camp, I think the other thing that it was very chill in our house as well. I mean, I think it was remarkably chilled. But it also was awesome as a parent who had never done the Common App, that my child knew what to do. And she found out from people who actually know what to do. And so there wasn't this like worry of like, oh my gosh, is she all set? She was like, Mom, it's good. I'm going to submit. I talked to guidance. I'm all set. I was like, wow, okay, awesome. Thanks. So it takes a lot of pressure off of you as parents for wondering if you're doing the right thing because they have people who have been through the process really backing them up. And it was lovely and awesome.
Well, we're at the point that we're going to turn it and let the audience ask any questions you might have. Are there any questions out there? We couldn't have done that good a job. It's hard to see with the lights in our eyes. Yes, over there in the corner.
I've heard reference to the PM as being in July, and then I heard talks of August and what, when we have those dates.
We just met today, actually, and the literature is going to be going out by the end of this month. I believe the dates that we set, or the weeks that we set, is the last week of July is when there's going to be a couple of different sessions. So the last week of July is when the students the first session will begin. They'll work on their essay for a few days, and then after August 1st, they'll meet with the guidance counseling staff, and then what we'll do is we'll start the application process. The Common App will be open at that point. And then there'll be another session, if you can't do it that week, there'll be another session a week or two after that. So the literature will be coming out in a couple of weeks.
There was a morning session, like a day session and evening sessions for good kids who worked could do the evening one or if they were committed to something else. So it's not like you can, so there definitely was options, so you wouldn't be blocked out, for sure.
Other questions? Go ahead.
When parents have their own log on to the Naviance, will we see what the kids are filling out?
Good question. When the parents log on to Naviance, will they see what the kids are filling out? Yes, if they give you access. There's a little button they have to click on that says share with parents, share with counselors, share with teacher. That's a conversation you got to have with your child. Other questions? It's hard to see, so just shout out the questions, please. That's it. Okay, well, we're going to be around for a few minutes. Just a couple of housekeeping things. First, again, if you could please take the goldenrod paper, the program evaluation form, and take a minute to fill it out. We really do appreciate the feedback, and like I said, it does help us change the program to make it better to fit your needs. If you need pencils, Mr. Brannigan has a bunch of pencils in the back. He would be more than happy to distribute pencils to you so you can write. All we ask is that when you complete the evaluation form, and there's 2 boxes by the back door as you exit, please drop the evaluation and the pencils into the box because we still have MCAS makeups tomorrow. We need those pencils. A few thank yous. First of all, I want to thank our panel for coming in tonight on their own time. We really appreciate that. Sarah Stearns, our senior student, Cody Eugenio, our senior parent, Sharon Nicole, admissions counselor from Bridgewater State University, Heather Mello, senior assistant dean of admissions from Stonefeld. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your time coming in here. Certainly want to thank Sean Siciliano, who provided all of our audio-visual needs for us tonight, and the MHS custodial staff for helping us with setup and cleanup, and especially you for coming out tonight. We really appreciate it. We hope you found this informative and helpful. If there's any questions, like I said, we'll be around for a little while after this program tonight. Contact your guidance counselor if you have any questions. And again, thank you very much for coming out. Have a good night, everybody.